This was sent to CornyDriveThru at gmail.com from Kevin in Orlando, a popular topic that many have sent in.
Oh, Kev down in Orlando.
Hey, Jim, don't know if you saw this. Howard Stern apparently brought up Goldust on a recent episode of his show and asked what happened to him. Someone said he wrestles for AEW, and when Howard asked what that was, co-host Robin Quivers said, "It's a backyard wrestling league. He wrestles in people's backyards." Has anything ever been so accidentally correct?
Oh, so, and you know, there's a line here because, to be honest, except that I know that he's on the air somewhere, I couldn't find Howard Stern now with goddamn map and directions. He's not on radio anymore. He's doing satellite, or he's doing a podcast, or he's doing something. What's he doing?
Satellite radio. He's been doing that for about 15 years now and making a fortune.
Well, I'm sure he is, but still, it's not like in the old days when he was on every morning radio show that in every town that you would just turn on and you knew where to find him, right? He's become one of those institutions, but he ain't red hot. He's just still smoldering. But this is the fucking problem, and I love Dustin, and he's doing his best work of his career now, unfortunately, in those surroundings. But even I know that AEW is not backyard wrestling, but how do you think that Robin Quivers did one of the producers fucking real quickly while they were talking about it, Google Dustin Rhodes, and they saw him get, in a fucking, was he on the football field, or was he in one of these hallway fucking fights that they've done, or one of these cinematic things they've done to where you would think that he's just wrestling in somebody's backyard?
Actually, I have a quote here from The Observer, if I could read it. While to expect Howard Stern to know wrestling when he never did before, his comments do indicate how AEW has not penetrated into the non-wrestling world. On June 8th, Stern on his show started talking about Goldust, and they played the tape when he was doing the Tourette's gimmick, which wasn't exactly the best, but Stern liked it.
Wonder why.
Stern said that Goldust was the greatest wrestling character and asked whatever happened to him. Robin Quivers noted that pro wrestling repackages people, and he may not have done well after that. Then a staffer gave Stern a note. Stern said the note says that Goldust now wrestles in AEW. Stern asked what AEW is. Quivers said it was a backyard wrestling federation, and he's now wrestling in backyards. Stern thought that was such a shame.
But okay, here let's suppose this. Let's suppose that the name Chris Jericho came up, because obviously Howard Stern is not fucking living his life around the comings and goings and doings in the wrestling world. He wasn't up on this, so let's assume that he obviously knows who Chris Jericho is. But he said, hey, I wonder, on his show sometime, I wonder what happened to Chris Jericho. And of course, he's got producers in his control room that are going to fucking start trying to find anybody he's talking about. That's the way radio works, right? Or something on anything, or something to blah, blah, blah. See, we have to just do this shit on our own. We're entertaining you and me, Brian, just the two of us. But these big shows, they got these fucking producers and things. What are the chances if you just typed Chris Jericho into something that he'd come up on the football field, having the goddamn line drawn over him in the greatest wrestling match ever held? And then this producer, who don't know dick all about wrestling as much as Howard Stern does, would go, oh, apparently he's now with a wrestling company where they fucking dress up in football pads and do comedy skits on the fucking field. You don't know who that's not keeping up with what's going on, just because we all do, because we all live our life around wrestling. Everybody in the world doesn't, including a lot of people who used to like it or used to watch it more regularly. So now you see, well, I used to love so-and-so. I wonder what he's doing. And you'd see the fucking Matt Hardy coming out of the ice machine, or Jericho getting the fucking line drawn from his crotch to his fucking lips, or any of the other stupid shit that recognized talent is involved with now. And you would think, well, they've left what I remember to be the big leagues of the WWE that does WrestleMania in stadiums, and now they're doing fucking, cable access shit.
But it says a lot about AEW's, the lack of awareness of AEW amongst people who aren't in the wrestling bubble right now.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. Nobody outside the wrestling bubble knows who the fuck AEW. It's not a big deal because so many people have moved on from wrestling because it has been so fucking silly and stupid and fake for so long. So now you're left with in AEW's case, 500,000 people that like silly, stupid, fake fucking wrestling, that they're in their echo chamber. And the WWE's left with a couple of million people that like the WWE because that's all they've known of wrestling for 20 years, even though it sucks. There's an abusive relationship there. We don't want to end it, but because we really like wrestling, but goddamn, this program hadn't been good in a while. And the more that these guys that do have names and can somehow get publicity for themselves do stupid bullshit like this, the more it comes up that instead of seeing someone in a ring winning a belt, even before, when there were fans in the audience, there was a lot of people there or whatever, they're seeing fucking even stars supposedly doing stupid shit in front of no fucking people. And not even in a ring in half the time, half the cases. That's not the way you get the entire wrestling business over. None of this stuff that they're doing at AEW is going to revolutionize wrestling by getting anybody to watch that wasn't already fucking watching and dedicated to watching to begin with. They don't even have all of the goddamn casual people that just kind of watch WWE because they think that's what wrestling is supposed to be. There's no fucking revolution going on here. I thought there might be a revolution with Ring of Honor when we went to all guys beating the piss out of each other as high-level trained fucking athletes, the Davey Richards and Roderick Strongs and Eddie Edwardses and et cetera, et cetera. But if it would have worked, we needed more time for it and a better launch at the beginning. But I don't even think anymore at this point that it would have worked because so many people have shit on the business for so long and done stupid, silly outlaw shit that the people that would have taken it seriously have just given up and moved away from wrestling completely. And so you got a couple million that like the WWE still because it really is not very good, but it probably will be again sometime. And you got 500,000 that like silly fucking stupid goof wrestling because they've never seen it done right. And you've got, 6 or 8 million? but conservatively, they were watching 20 years ago when people were really fucking kicking ass and fucking taking names and wonder why the fuck it ain't like that anymore. Oh, it's because now it's all silly and fake and they're all small children. So I don't expect anybody to even know it. I don't expect Howard Stern to know the current WWE talent. I don't expect anybody in the mainstream media to know any of the current WWE talent because there's not any stars amongst them. Past John Cena, if you can call him still current, nobody does because nobody's watching this shit anymore because they've fucking hokied and pokeyed it up to the point where only the fucking Twitter audience that likes 24 hours of it wants to watch this shit. Because we got too many Twinkle Toes McFinger Bangs and not enough Phil Higgersons.
I told you we had a party here several months back, and I was talking to someone because that was the night of an AEW pay-per-view, and I had to watch it because we were reviewing it on this show or The Experience. I forget which one. And one of our friends was hanging out with me on the couch in the den, and he said, "Is that Goldust?" I said, "Yeah, he wrestles here now." He had no idea what AEW was. Big fan from the Attitude Era. Had no idea what any of this was. Was surprised that Goldust was happy that Goldust was still around, but was surprised that Goldust was there. Had never heard of AEW, and that's one of the points that we kind of make, although you may sprinkle it with a lot of other stuff.
Well, here, I'll make this point. The point is, for the past 15 years, when I go to Fan Fest, Legends reunions, comic conventions that don't even have anything mainly to do with wrestling, when I go to a large public gathering, people say to me, I used to love to watch wrestling. I don't anymore. And it's so because it got too fake, silly, scripted. You can tell they don't mean it. However they say it, that's the reason they give. And that is in a wrestling fan fest. It's about half and half. And at a comic convention, it's 95. I used to watch wrestling and love it and don't anymore, to 5. Oh, I still watch wrestling. And these idiots who think that they have somehow reinvented the wheel and revolutionized the business with their silliness, that they have convinced the fans who like that type of thing that it is actually successful, when you can look at every business metric and statistic and determine that it's not. Because if it was successful in revolutionizing the business and reinventing the wheel, then there would be a lot more people watching wrestling. What you have is the people who are left watching wrestling happen to like that shit, so they make a lot of noise. But unfortunately, these what do they call it? The silent majority of the difference between 2 million people on Monday night and 10 million people on Monday night has not been. It's not like those people check the fucking news every morning like they check the weather report on whether a new wrestling program has come on the air that will be wrestling like I used to like it, when they actually meant it and they really tried to make it real. They watch the fucking weather forecast because they know it's either going to rain or sunshine on them every fucking day. But they've long since given up trying to find wrestling promotions because they don't think it's ever going to fucking happen again. And and then, to be perfectly honest, the only reason that 10 million people on Monday nights was a big fucking deal was because it was 10 million people at the same time on the same day watching the same show. Because if you go back to the territory days of the 60s and 70s and 80s, then at least 2 or 3 times that many people were watching wrestling because of all the regional programs on broadcast television, the strongest form of communication at the time, in every major market on a weekly basis, and lack of cable so that people were watching one of 3 or 4 stations. A wrestling program in a shitty territory and a weak station was still doing fucking a 20 share. And that was bad for wrestling in those days. So you can talk about 25 million people every week watching some form of wrestling on television. Or you can go back to the 50s when the first network TV boom came, and fucking Vern Gagne and Gorgeous George and Hans Schmidt and Luthez and a couple other guys, depending on what year it was, were one of the 5 highest paid professional athletes in any sport in the United States of America. And that fucking United States title from the Marigold Arena was being seen by 30-something million people or more every fucking week. Because it was network, and there were only 2 of them at that point. So no, they haven't reinvented anything. They've just done some shit to milk the fucking most susceptible dumb fucks amongst them into making some noise, and that's what they then claim, oh, well, they want this silly shit. It's what Road Warrior and his brother Balding, the Bucks, they think that because they're in that group of people who, for those who kind of people who like that kind of thing, that's the kind of thing those kind of people like, they think they've reinvented something. Or Olivier is emoting and spreading his art all over the canvas. He spreads his art all over the ring like a pervert, spreads his sperm all over the floor of a peep show. And they just, all the people that are there to watch it just cream over it. But meanwhile, the building is half empty, and they used to be running bigger buildings. Don't give me the fucking COVID joke. I'm talking about when we can have people, we could have people. Everybody for the last 20 years has been insisting that wrestling has to get more entertaining to survive, and every time it gets more entertaining, fewer people watch it. I'm done with that question.